In the barren desert, where the winds howled like ghosts of forgotten nations, a new tribe rose with terrifying might, the Amalekites. Their children were raised in fire and steel. From the moment they could walk, they learned to run with spears in their hands. They drank no milk of mercy, only the bitterness of blood and conquest. Their warriors were giants, their horses swift like shadows across the dunes. The Amalekites ruled the deserts with arrogance. They raided caravans, enslaved the weak, and set fire to villages that resisted them. To them, mercy was weakness and power was the only law. Their name spread like thunder across Arabia, Egypt, and the lands of Canaan. Even kings whispered it with dread, "The Amalekites are coming." When Moses led the children of Israel out of Egypt, free from Pharaoh's chains, the Amalekites were waiting. They saw the weary, hungry, and frightened Israelites as easy prey. Amalekite scouts returned to their chiefs and declared, "They're weak. Their children cry for bread. Their women stumble in the desert. Let us strike and wipe them from the earth before they gain strength." The Amalekite warriors prepared for battle. Their faces were painted with blood, their swords polished in the moonlight. They howled into the desert night, "We are the storm. We will crush them like sand beneath our feet." But Moses, the prophet of God, raised his staff to the heavens. His eyes blazed with faith. He told Joshua, "Choose men and fight them. But know this, the victory is not in your sword. It is in the hands of the Almighty." The next morning, the two armies clashed in the valley of Rephidim. The earth trembled under the hooves of Amalekite horses. Their spears fell like rain, their roars like thunder. The Israelites staggered, but Joshua rallied them. On a nearby hill, Moses stood with his staff raised high toward the sky. As long as his hands were lifted, the Israelites pushed forward. When his hands grew heavy and fell, the Amalekites gained ground. Then Aaron and Hur, seeing the weakness, rushed to his side. They held up his arms, one on each side, until the sun burned the horizon red. With the last cry of the day, Joshua struck down the Amalekite leaders, and their warriors scattered like dust in the wind. That day, a message was carved into history: arrogance falls before faith. But though defeated, the Amalekites were not destroyed. They vowed revenge, swearing by the fires of the gods that they would rise again. The Amalekites return and the rise of David. Generations passed, but the blood of Amalek remained unquiet. They were beaten once by the hands of Moses, yet their hatred smoldered like fire under ashes. They did not disappear. Instead, they crept through the deserts, striking like serpents. Caravans were plundered, villages burned, and no traveler crossed their paths without fear. Their children were taught a single creed: Israel must never rest, for we are their shadow. The Israelites settled in the land, ruled by judges and later by kings. Yet the Amalekites were always there, sometimes hidden, sometimes roaring from the wilderness like a storm. They attacked the weak, raided at night, and carried off women and children as slaves. Their cruelty became a legend of terror. Then rose David, the shepherd who had once faced the giant Goliath with nothing but a sling and faith in God. He was no longer only a shepherd boy. He had become a warrior, a leader, and the chosen one of the Almighty. His men followed him through caves, deserts, and battlefields. The songs of Israel sang his name. David has slain his tens of thousands. But the Amalekites had not forgotten their ancient vow. One dark day, while David and his men were away, the Amalekites descended upon the town of Ziklag. Like a plague of fire they swept through, burning houses to ash, carrying off women, children, and treasure. Not one sword was lifted against them, for the warriors of Israel were gone. When David returned, the smoke still rose against the sky. His men fell to the ground, tearing the garments, their cries piercing the heavens. Their wives were gone, their sons and daughters vanished. The sorrow turned to fury, and some among them whispered, "David is to blame. If we had not followed him, our families would be safe." Stones were lifted, and for a moment, even his own people thought of stoning him. But David did not break. He turned his face to the Almighty and prayed, Shall I pursue this enemy? Shall I overtake them? Will you deliver them into my hands? And the answer came, clear as thunder in his heart, pursue. You will surely overtake and rescue all. Strength returned to him. He rose like a lion and commanded his 600 men to march. Through the wilderness they went, but the path was hard, and 200 grew too weary to continue. 400 pressed on with David, their hearts burning with vengeance. On the road, they found a half-dead Egyptian slave, abandoned by his Amalekite master. They gave him bread, water, and kindness, and when his strength returned, he spoke, I am a servant of the Amalekites. They burned your city and took your people. If you spare my life, I will guide you to them. This was no accident. It was destiny. The Amalekites were feasting in their camps, drunk with stolen wine, laughing over their spoils. They believed Israel broken, their women slaves forever, their children fatherless. Torches lit the night, drums beat, and their pride roared louder than the desert wind. But then the earth shook with the cry of David and his warriors, for the Lord Almighty. Swords flashed like lightning, and terror ripped through the Amalekite ranks. They tried to stand, but the hand of justice was upon them. Through the night and into the next day, the battle raged. The Amalekite giants fell one by one. Their laughter turned to screams. Their feast became their funeral. Not one of the captives was lost. Wives, daughters, and sons were restored. Every treasure was recovered, every life returned. When the weary 200 men rejoined them, some warriors sneered, they did not fight. They shall not share the spoils. But David stood tall and declared, No, my brothers. This victory is not ours, it is the Lord's. The share of those who guarded the camp is the same as those who fought the battle. Thus David showed not only the courage of a warrior but the justice of a king. The Amalekites, once the terror of the desert, were struck down. Their pride shattered, their strength broken. What remained of them scattered like shadows into the wilderness. Never again would they rise as they once had. The final defeat of the Amalekites and the eternal lesson. The Amalekites were broken, yet not utterly erased. Like a disease that hides in the blood, they lingered in scattered bands across the wilderness. They struck where they could, preying on the weak, but the glory was gone. No longer did their name thunder like storms. They were shadows of their former selves. But the command of the Almighty remained. Remember Amalek, how they rose against you when you were weak. Do not forget. One day their memory shall be wiped from under heaven. In the generations that followed, kings and prophets of Israel continued the struggle. Saul, the first king of Israel, was given the task of utterly destroying Amalek. He struck him down from Havilah to Shur, sparing none but one, their king, Agag. In his weakness, Saul disobeyed the divine command. Agag was brought in chains, but alive. It was Samuel the prophet who finished what Saul had left undone, striking Agag with the sword and declaring, As your sword made women childless, so shall your mother be childless among women. With that, the line of Amalek's kings ended. Still, remnants survived. Bands of raiders scattered like sparks blown by the wind. But the shadow of their vengeance was fading. Their strength could never again gather into a storm. Their defeat at the hands of David and the judgment through Samuel had carved the doom into history. The Amalekites became a whisper, a caution, a fading scar on the world's memory. Where once they boasted, we are the storm of the desert, their name now brought only silence. The nations who trembled at them no longer feared them. They vanished into the sand, swallowed by time. Yet their story remained, a warning across the ages. It was not only the tale of giants and warriors, of burning villages and endless raids. It was the tale of arrogance destroyed by faith, of cruelty erased by justice. The Amalekites taught the world that no nation, no matter how mighty, can stand forever on the strength of its own sword. Pride is sand, it slips through the fingers. But faith is stone, it endures. From Moses raising his hands on the hill, to David charging into the Amalekite camp, the lesson was clear: the strength of men falls, but the strength of God never fails. Answer: the desert winds carry the ashes of Amalek, but the memory of their fall lives on, a testimony for all generations.